Okay, so now we're going to find the domain of the product of f of x times g of x. So first you're going to have to find the domain of f of x. If you set 1 plus x to be greater than or equal to 0, x is greater than or equal to -1, which means that would be bracket -1 to infinity. Now the domain of g of x, you're going to set 3 minus x to be greater than or equal to 0 and solve that. That'll be negative x is greater than or equal to -3, and x is less than or equal to +3 because you divided by a negative, so you're going to have to flip the sign. The domain of this is from negative infinity to 3 with a bracket. You can graph this on the number line to see that it's going to the left. Now, what is the intersection of both of these domains? It does help to graph that on the number line. We need -1, we need 3. This is from the f of x function. It's a solid point at -1 going to the right, and for the g of x, it's a solid point at 3 going to the left. What is the intersection of those two domains? It would be including -1 and 3, and then everything in between. So the domain of h of x would be bracket -1 to 3 bracket. So anything outside of this domain is not going to work for this h of x function. So the new function now, I need to multiply the f of x function times the g of x function because that's what it says to do here. So if I multiply those two, that is the square root of 1 plus x times the square root of 3 minus x. You are allowed to multiply what's inside the square root, so if I do that, h of x is equal to the square root of 1 plus x times 3 minus x. If you FOIL all of that out, that's going to give us 3 minus x plus 3x minus x squared. And then if I simplify that, I get h of x is equal to the square root of negative x squared plus 2x plus 3. Now use that result, what we have for this function for h of x, to find h of 2 and h of 4. Which of those two is not going to work for the function? One of those will not work. The h of 4 is outside of that domain, so we already know that h of 4 is going to be undefined. And h of 2, I actually can plug that in, just plugging in 2's for the x's, gives me the square root of negative 2 squared plus 2 times 2 plus 3. And that gives me the square root of -4 plus 3, and that's the square root of 3. Now, if we're going to find the domain of the quotient here in this next one, we're going to have to determine the domain of f over g of x. So that's going to be x cubed minus 3x squared plus 2x minus 6 all over x minus 3.